All four of these folks are on Twitter. I just got their handles up behind you, so if you want to tweet them directly or just put questions to them, things like that, would be fantastic. So I'm going to head down the road here and ask you to give them a big hand. We'll get started. So first, my immediate left, we have Mr. Charlie Reed. Charlie Reed is a graduate of both the undergraduate and graduate programs here at UNO. He is currently coordinator of media relations for UNO. Does that sound correct? His areas of research are awesome. Anime, film, horror, the notion of the uncanny, comic books, they move all over the place. Some of his best papers have been like on Resident Evil, on Akira, and he was at NebraskaCon over the weekend, so they asked him about that. So that's kind of where his wheelhouse sits, and in general, it's kind of a culture guy. Next to him is Mr. Ryan Sirik. Mr. Ryan Sirik is a couple things. One, he is the film critic for Omaha Reader. So if you've read this column, he wrote it. Swear words and all. So, second, he and one of his fellow compatriots are the co-founders and he's the co-host of Movie Ha, which is the Omaha movie podcast. If you've not listened to it, you should. You will crack up hysterically. And then be like, dude, where does this knowledge of movies come from? That's Ryan. Third, Ryan is also one of the assistant coaches for the nationally ranked UNO forensics team, in other words, speech and debate, not forensics like psychology or research, things like that. The other thing, they ranked 6th last year, 5th the year before, and you are especially into prose, poetry, interpret events for the most part, correct? So that is what Ryan is all about, and hosts like 1,000 other things, because do you sleep? Yeah. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, cool. Next to him, Kevin Coffey has joined us from the Omaha World Herald. He is their music critic, I would say culture critic overall as well. It kind of seems like stuff you do. I'll take it. Okay, awesome, cool. He also writes the blog Rock Candy, which is affiliated with but not part of Omaha World Herald. Does that sound?
That's how it used to be. It's now part of Omaha.com.
Omaha.com. So there it is. So the other side.
Yeah.
The stepchild, the underlings of awesome. That's where I usually hang out. So perfect. So Kevin has joined us. And next to Kevin is Ms. Rachel Jacobson. Ms. Rachel Jacobson is the founder and chair of the board. Does that sound correct?
Executive director.
Executive director, my bad, of Film Streams in the Roosstock Loft Theater, which is Omaha's kind of premier nonprofit art film, I would say, establishment in Omaha. It's fantastic. Please give them a round of applause for joining us. So, and everyone's going to be looking at things randomly because I'll have the Twitter feed and everything else going on in the back here. The first question I have for each of you is going to go straight down the line is really, how the heck did you get into what you do? How did you get where you are now? So Charlie, you get started.
Is that picking us up?
I'm hoping.
Okay. How did I get into well, I'll just talk about my job specifically. So I was a grad of UNO, and I got done with my master's program, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But I know I didn't want to do school very much more because I had done it from kindergarten through grad school. And so I worked for a little while at UNO Television, which is just downstairs. And then my former boss gave me a job over what was the University Relations Department as the online media coordinator. So I helped get the UNO Facebook page, Twitter account, YouTube page kind of up to speed. And then the person that had the job that I currently have left. And so then I applied for her job and I got her job. And that basically is that I bug people like Kevin, but not necessarily Kevin all the time. I bug all his coworkers to cover UNO or to try and keep UNO out of the news if it's a bad thing, which does happen. And that's pretty much kind of what I've been doing in terms of the research side. Well, I really actually don't even know why I went to grad school initially. I think I just decided that I didn't know, again, kind of one of those things where I didn't know what I wanted to do, so more school made sense. And then I took your class, the critical theory class, and after that first week, I'm like, why did I do this again? Because you made us read Marx the first week.
I do that to people.
And that was not fun. But from that, I decided that I really actually did kind of like theory, and specifically I like visual rhetoric, which is basically just what do pictures say. And so I started analyzing movies and comic books and TV shows, which are basically just the things that I watch and deal with on a regular basis anyways, so why not cover it? And I've actually had more success than I would have thought doing that, at least in terms of presenting at conferences and things like that. So.
Cool.
Right.
Well, as far as the movie stuff goes, I got into that kind of on accident. I was feeling weird that third time to get this story, and it's kind of interesting. But I was walking around downtown when the Reader offices were downtown. I literally just, for no reason, walked in, and the first person I saw said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I want to write about movies." And she said, "We're looking for a movie reviewer." And that was like 11 years ago. And so that's literally how it happened. I just walked in and asked, because I've always loved movies and culture and communication. I've always wanted to write about it. But you'd be surprised how hard it is to make a living doing that. So I just got lucky with the Reader and with the opportunities they had there. And since then, I've tried to crawl into as many different fields as I can. Podcasts, like you said, and I do a radio show on Fridays. I do a segment for KBNO here. So yeah, I've got a lot of irons in the fire, but really it comes down to, as far as the writing side of it goes, just never turning down an opportunity whenever one was presented to me. I've written song lyrics for bands and website bio stuff, and I'll do pretty much any sort of writing in order to get an opportunity to see what's going on.
Cool. Awesome. Kevin.
I was always kind of the guy in my group of friends in high school. Was like going to music, going to shows and stuff. I went to Creighton for journalism, and in the middle of that, oddly similar to Ryan's story, I called up the Reader's offices and was like, I want to be an intern. They were like, we need interns, and
They apparently are always hiring.
yeah, good job. Yeah, there you go. Unpaid internship, but that actually turned into a paid job where people actually, including Ryan, would send me stories and I would like copy edit them. But that also let me start doing music stories. So like my first big story was writing about Fall Out Boy, which I thought was the coolest thing at the time. But that kind of got me to that and like paid writing. I took a job at the World Herald as an online editor because that's what was available, and did that for a couple years, working nights and working on Omaha.com. And then our former music writer quit. She just decided she was burned out on it. She didn't want to do nights a lot, and I like worked out, applied for the job, and I got it. And I've been doing that now for like 5 years. I also kind of, because I'm way into pop culture, movies, and comic books, and role-playing games, video games, I ended up just writing a lot of that stuff too, because I'm the guy on the staff that knows what he's talking about, and so it just kind of falls. So, that's how it goes.
Rachel, how about you?
Well, Adam, Ryan, and Charlie have probably heard this story a zillion times, so I apologize to you guys before, but yeah, I grew up in Omaha. I went to University of Illinois, and I was studying English and political science, and kind of like Charlie, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I was taking a lot of film history and criticism classes, and I was really passionate about that, so I had this kind of epiphany, because I wanted to move back to Omaha someday, and I also wanted to work in film, and I specifically wanted to work in film supporting artists who care about what they're doing rather than the commercial side of film. So I had this idea that I would start a Cinematheque in Omaha. Cinematheques are like museums for film, movie theaters that are devoted to classics and great contemporary films all over Europe. And so I thought I would love to run a movie theater. And with that in mind, I moved out to New York City and worked and lived there for about 5 years. Every job I took was kind of to get experience to move back home and do this eventually. And meanwhile, my friends in bands, Saddle Creek Bands mostly, which is a local label here in town, were kind of blowing up and playing shows in New York. And one night I met Rob Manzel, who's the head of Saddle Creek, and he and I started brainstorming about different ideas about how we could. He wanted to start a concert venue here, and I wanted to start a movie theater. So we were like, what if we did it together? And at first it was a really modest idea, like we would do it in a warehouse house, and we'd have folding chairs, and show movies during the day, move them out at night, have a rock show. And then the city came on board, and they wanted to make North Downtown into an entertainment district, into a cultural district. And so they offered them something called tax increment financing, so that they could do this massive development. And Rob called me up in my apartment in New York in January 2005, 5 years after I had the initial idea, and kind of said, you know, why don't you move home and start your movie theater and do it along with our concert venue, and we can build this whole development. And so I immediately said yes, and spent about 2 years raising the money, and we opened along with Slowdown, which is a concert venue that is also in the development, in 2007. And the good new news is that Saddle Creek was our landlords for the first 5 years that we were open, but we actually bought our space from them last year, so now we own our portion of the building, so that's kind of exciting. But we've been operating 365 days a year for 6 years and a few months now, which is crazy.
So you've all gotten to kind of be this, you found your niche with media, whether it be movies or it be music, whatever the case may be. So one of my questions that came up as I was going through is that we just finished reading a chapter on television and visual culture. So my question to you is, how did media influence, or how does it influence your daily life? Like, where do you see it? I mean, and obviously it's part of your jobs, but why? I mean, something must have attracted you to this idea of media, one way or another. So what got you into why? What role is it play? And whoever wants to jump off that diving board.
I mean, I think my love of film also started with like storytelling, really, and empathy, and but then I've also always really been into music, and I love the idea of art sharing too. Like, I feel like that's such a special and important thing. Like, to be like, oh my God, I'm so into this song, you got to listen to it, and then if your friend loves it too, that is such a wonderful and exciting experience. So I think that my passion for that is what made me want to do what I'm doing. But I probably spend 80% of my day in front of a screen. So I feel like I'm just rambling right now. I don't even know where I'm going with this, because I mean, I love, I love all forms of media, and I just feel like it's such a huge part of the human experience, and has always been, so important to me, just to have shelves and shelves of books and CDs, and but now it's all in one little place, but I mean, sharing human emotions is really what it comes down to.
And I think that's why you see all of us are interested in so many different things. Like, I love all types of entertainment and culture and all. I mean, from music to, I would be one who would put sports in with that as well. I like all of that stuff. But I think that one of the ways in which it's changed more recently is the virtual water cooler nature of social media that allows you to engage with a bunch of people instantly about something that you're either watching in real time or just watched, or, it's crazy because we live in a world now where, specifically with smaller films like the ones that come to film streams, I might write a review, and the director of the film might engage me on social media, I mean, and that's just, it's madness, it never used to be like that. But I will say that's one of those blessing and a curse things too, is because as a critic in particular, the hard thing for me is that everybody's opinion is now out there, and how do you distinguish what opinions quote unquote matter more than others? Because while I do believe in everyone having a voice and an opinion on culture and art, I think the discussion is great. There is a difference between someone who sees, I'm on pace this year, I'm going to end up seeing a movie a day, 365 movies, I'm all right in line, I hit 300 like tomorrow. And, so there is something different about somebody who takes in that much of a medium, as opposed to someone who watches a movie once a month. Those opinions, it's hard because we like to believe all opinions are quote unquote equal in that regard, but, when it comes down to your context and your background and your framing, social media has led us to believe that everyone's opinions are exactly the same when they kind of aren't. But I do, at the same token, like being able to engage with people. I like going on the discussions because, review is an opinion. And so people will, have strong reactions one way or another. Usually negative, and usually in the syndication I have in Boulder, where I've been called such terrible things.
I'm sure you get the same emails that I do. What quote?
Oh yeah. No, I was flat out called like sexist and misogynistic, and I don't understand how you got that from my review, but okay, Yeah, it's funny because I've been doing this now for, like I said, 11 years, and I could probably have a binder of all of the angry emails I got, and I got my first positive one, like last year, like one, and it wasn't even like, you're the greatest reviewer ever, I loved your review, it was like, thank you for reviewing that film. I'm like, I would take it, that is a win.
So maybe, and here's a tangent number one. Tell us about your experience with Iron Sky.
Oh!
The Iron Sky Netflix Sunday evening.
You noticed that as well. All right, so I got bored like 2 years ago. And,
You got bored?
Right? I don't know. I have to work all the time or I go crazy. And so I was bored on a Sunday night, and it was the middle of the summer, and I said, I wanted, this idea of live tweeting a film is interesting to me. Never in a theater because that makes you evil. But if you live tweet at home, it allows you to kind of engage with people, you know, in a different way across the country, across the world. And so every Sunday night at 9 o'clock, my Twitter feed ruins everyone's feed because
And Facebook wall.
and Facebook wall and everything else. I just dominate everything. I just try and pump out as many jokes or comments or ideas or thoughts about a film as I'm watching it. And so I'm just dumping out just copious amounts of things on Iron Sky, which is a great bad movie. It is a wonderful bad film. And I know that sounds weird, but they used to make these type of films all the time, where they would be sort of cheesy and goofy, but they were trying to be sincere, and this one totally hit that. So I'm just ranting and raving about Iron Sky left and right, and the director starts responding to me, right? And it's like, I'm engaging the guy, and then you always feel back, it's like, did I say something terrible about him while I was doing this? I had to like scroll back to the feed. But my highlight actually has been, I have a huge crush on Britt Marling. I think she's brilliant and amazing and talented. And the night after I live tweeted a whole bunch of stuff on Sound of My Voice, which is one of my favorite films she's done, she thanked me for it.
Aww.
I wanted to throw it down and be like, I'm done, I'm out. That's it, that's all I can got.
So, Kevin, Charlie, talk about.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's the cultural touchstones that everyone can share. I mean, at least in my age range and my gender, if you mentioned Fight Club anywhere in like a radius, like, oh, I love that movie.
Yeah,
You know, it's no, that's true. Not just broke the first rule. So, but I mean, that's why you have Oscar parties. That's why you have Grammy parties. That's why you have people that dress up to go watch Twilight, all 4 movies in a row in a theater. That's like 12 hours straight in a theater, dressed up as a vampire or a werewolf. And I mean, people really latch onto that stuff, and I do too. But I think also there's something really neat about sitting down with a good movie or a good book by yourself and really just kind of absorbing it and jumping into that world for a little bit. You know, and that's the case with me when I'll watch a really good movie or like, I didn't think that I would like Harry Potter until I actually read the first book and then I read the next 5, like all within 2 weeks. And now I'm sucked in. And it was the same thing with Hunger Games too. I tried to avoid it, and then I read it, and I'm like, yeah, these are actually okay. And so I think it's part escapism that I really enjoy about it. But then, if so many people are all finding something interesting in a particular book, video game, movie, song, there's something there, and it says something about the types of people we are. And so I like to try and uncover what's beneath that, why people were so attracted, or they hate something. Like everyone hates this one thing. Why is that? So that's kind of for me, I think, why I'm so interested in that.
Kevin.
I kind of got into music originally. I'm not from like a musical family. My brother plays guitar. I'm really bad at music, but like my dad listened to a ton of country music, which is weird, and my brother listened to like the Beastie Boys and Metallica. So like I have a really weird formation of why I like music, but that's kind of how I got into it. And I feel like in the past, music especially was very much shared by, dude, you gotta listen to this song, you gotta listen to this record. Come over to my house and I will show it to you. Now it's like, it's this exact same thing, but it's, hey, have you heard of this track? It's on Spotify. I shared it with my 2,000 followers, like, and now everybody has it. So it's, that kind of answers how I got into music, but also how it affects me every day. It's like, now it's not just like talking to my friends about what they like or people I work with or that kind of thing, it's just like instantly shared. So kind of getting it all the time from all different ways and kind of filtering it out is the difficult part, especially with like Twitter. I only follow like 150 people, and I probably see 2,000 tweets go across my screen every single day, and everyone was talking about some different song or band or whatever, plus the 200 emails that come in like miles. So it's a little insane, but it's kind of fun because I get to go pick through every single little thing and figure out what I like and tell other people about it. Like that's my job.
That's not a tough job. That's kind of a cool job.
No, it's all right.
So we've got a series of questions coming through Twitter right now. I'm going to start kind of collapsing them. So on the career side, we've got questions about what skill set would you recommend for someone who wants to get into any of your careers? How do you handle the idea of it might not be very financially viable, which Ryan, you may comment to. But this particularly for probably Ryan and Kevin, what happens when your opinion clashes with another person's opinion, and how do you resolve that? And then another question came up, do any of you develop what you share or critique? So if, for Rachel, for example, for you, do you also do film production? Do you also shoot things like that? But those are some of the questions that have come across on the career side, plus someone really likes your beard, Ryan. Just want to let you know.
Thank you,
So.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
I've been working hard.
it showed up, so
Thank
there
you.
it is. So, all right. So on the career side, any of you take any of those or any of those prompts?
How do you respond to someone who disagrees with you? Tell them they're wrong.
Right?
I always want to know why they think what they think. Like, email, your review sucked. Like, well, that's not helpful. Why did my review suck? I will engage the person to figure out why they hate me or whatever. But kind of talking about that stuff. And some people just have different opinions of certain types of music. The one that is probably the most divisive is Nickelback. I've seen this band like 5 times. Having to review Nickelback is awful. Because I don't like them.
Just shorten that down to Nickelback.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. So, but they have a huge, rabid fan base. They've sold out every show they've done here in the last 5 years. It's nuts. So when I write a review about how bad they were, you better believe I'll be inundated with emails. Some of them are just name calling, which is whatever. But I like to talk to people like, well, why do you like them? It's okay that people like Nickelback. It's fine. People can like bad movies and like bad music. It's totally cool. I have like, for some people, Nickelback's probably the greatest band in the world to them. To me, they're not. But you all have guilty pleasures and whatever, and that's okay. I hate guilty pleasures. I wish people just like them and stop being guilty about it. But yeah, I like to engage people on why they think it. Sometimes what qualifies you to say what you're saying comes up. It's like, well, I've done this a long time. I do this every day. Probably very few exceptions. Most people are casual music fans.
I think it all comes down to civility too. Like I want to engage very much with people and discuss movies. I don't mind having someone. In fact, when someone doesn't like something that I like, I feel I want to know. I want to understand, right? And the same is true. If I loved something and someone else didn't like it, I want to understand it. The problem is right now, the discourse sometimes consists of, I don't like that movie, you liked it, you are stupid.
Yeah.
You know, and it just goes straight there. You know, I wrote, I got syndicated in Boulder like a year ago, and I wrote a review of some Robert Redford movie, and I mentioned that he looked old, which I don't think is an insult. I hope to be old one day, right? Like it's.
But whenever you mention that in print,
I don't know. He looks kind of old.
Is it this one?
No, it wasn't this one.
This one's really good.
Yeah.
He looks good, but he looks old.
But I don't even know if I want to review it because I say he looks old. I'm not kidding you. They came after me, and I forgot that it was Sundance, right? Like it Boulder is in that area, and so Robert Redford is beloved. And so they just came to me with pitchforks and torches. That, and then
Did you lose your syndication?
No, but I thought I was going to briefly for a while there. And then I also I didn't really love Moonrise Kingdom. I just didn't love it. I thought that, you know, there's been a million. I feel like he's now, you know, Wes Anderson, Royal Tenenbaums, those sorts of things. I feel like he's now gotten to the point where he's kind of lazy. He's doing the same things over and over again, and I'm just kind of tired of it. I know, but I personally see it. I personally am tired with it. That's fine. And by the way, I gave the film like a B-, and I swear I thought I was going to be murdered by it. I swear. I posted the review or the link on the review to Twitter. I have never gotten that many responses in my entire life. And so it was insane. But, you know, I like the discussion factor. I really do. And the other problem that's happening right now with social media that drives me crazy as far as films and TV goes is the spoiler nature of what's going on right now. It drives me insane because there's this arrogance level about it where if you ever see online comments on any news article anywhere or anything ever, usually the first guy says what? First, right? That's all he does. He just wants to be there before you, right? And so there's a sense in which now this social media that lets us discuss these things is just a means for these people to somehow be trolls and evil, and they spoil the endings of things as they happen.
So
you know?
I'm a huge like sci-fi fan, and it took me like 6 months to see the new Star Trek movie.
Sure.
Whatever, like not that big of a deal, but I didn't. There's a twist in it with a certain character. You find out the background nature of this character. If you're into Star Trek, it's a big deal. I didn't know that because I hadn't seen the movie for maybe 5 or 6 months, and I read an online article that was like, well, if you haven't seen this yet, like, I don't know what you've been doing, spoiled the entire thing. I was like, well,
Asshole.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was like,
Able to avoid Breaking Bad, like the last 5 episodes
Yeah.
of Breaking Bad.
It's so easy.
I have you. Don't ruin it.
If you don't want to be a jerk, you toss the word spoiler at the time. And if I haven't seen anything, I don't even need to know what it's specific to, right? Like if there's something I'm worried about and the word is spoiler is in the front of the thing, I just won't read the comment. How hard is that? It's like one word.
yeah.
It's really interesting because your experience, I mean, you guys are called critics. So it's like there's critical there, and so people feel like they need to fight you. They feel like they need to battle you. And like I'm coming in as a programmer and as a curator, and like people are so nice. Like they're so
Please show our
nice.
movie.
Like I mean, every once in a while we'll get something that's really mean, but usually like even if people don't like a film, you know, who are regulars, you know, they'll want to engage me in a conversation about it, and it's actually, you know, pretty interesting. And Ryan, you and I should get into Blue is the Warmest Color because you just reviewed one that we're opening on Friday.
Yeah.
Not such a good review.
No.
And I loved it. I mean, I didn't love it as much as it won Best Picture at the Cannes Film Festival, which is a huge deal. So there's obviously a lot of people that do love it, and it's getting great reviews. So I can justify it, you know, by saying that, by pointing to all of those things. Like, and even if we play something that I don't totally love personally, if it's getting really good reviews, and if it's won a bunch of awards, and if it's seen as important because the director's important, then we should probably play it.
Can I tell you how
People
bad
get
I
that.
feel every time I give a movie at your theater bad? Every single time.
Well, I gotta give you shit.
I know, right? You have to, but I'm telling you, like, I feel bad every time because you guys are so great and bring these wonderful artistic movies about. But the point about an artistic film is you're supposed to get a reaction out of you,
Right.
even if that reaction is negative. And I think sometimes people don't understand. If I didn't like it, that's not me necessarily saying no one should see it. It provoked a reaction in me, you know. It just provoked a negative one to a large degree, you know. And yeah, but I seriously feel guilty every single time. I feel like emailing you and saying, I'm sorry that I did that.
I know you don't mean it to hurt.
Charlie.
I'm kind of in, I'm not a critic either, because my relationship is I'm trying to pitch these stories to people that I want to cover them, or they want to come to me and be a professor, and I'm usually pretty good about that, but you're fighting against everyone else in town to try and get your event or your story covered. And a lot of times the reporter there will say, we're not going to come and cover that. And it's my job to say, but you really should, even though in the back of my head, I know why they're not covering it, and I agree with them. But I can't say that, and and I've got all these people that are here on campus that have events and have guest speakers and have symposiums and have things that they believe is the most important thing in the world, and why is no one coming to cover it? And it's like, well, because it's people sitting down in a chair listening to a speaker for an hour and a half, and that's just not going to sell in a minute and a half on KETV. So I do this kind of weird dance where I try and let the people down who want their stuff covered easy. Like I try and let them down easy and say, well, or try and find other angles that people can take on and say, well, you know, do you have a student or do you have someone that has a really interesting story that maybe could be a profile piece that could then lead into this event that's going on? That's usually how I manage to weave it in. But there are just other times where they say, no, we're not going to come cover it, and then you have to learn to pick and choose your battles. So if it's something that is really important to the university, I will fight it, and I will say, no, you really need to go. Like, then you start to bargain, and then you say, well, if you come and cover it, we'll make it an exclusive for you. Or anytime that you need help, we can get you access to people that normally you wouldn't get access to. So it's that kind of balance, at least for me.
So really quick, I'm going to ban Nickelback from the Twitter feed because it has now become the back channel conversation, and it makes me nauseous. So, all right. So here is a question. I'm going to, what's up with Nickelback? Come on. I want to kind of move to this idea of media as kind of a return on investment culture. And what I mean by that is the fact that if things don't get played on really quick, they are automatically dumped, cut, what have you. And the reason I bring this up is because today on NPR, this morning they were talking about the fact that the week 4 cuts happen. On TV, what basically happens is it used to be you got 13 weeks. You got half a season to essentially establish yourself or you get cut as a show. You now get 4 weeks. You get 1 month of programming to see whether or not you are going to make it. So those got announced this past week, or I think yesterday they got announced. So my question to you all is this. What do you think about contemporary media in this age of ROI, or return on investment driven content? So if it doesn't get returned fast, it's dumped. And then second, what does this mean for content developers or aggregators like a Netflix, Amazon, Hulu Plus, Spotify, things like that? So it's kind of a two-part question. I think this idea is both media culture and a business right now of media.
I'll actually, when you mentioned Netflix, that kind of came up with an idea for me. So I've been reading this book called Live from New York, where it's basically these interviews with cast, crew, writers, editors from SNL. And usually from 75 through 95 is the period the book covers. And they talk about how no one wanted, I mean, the show was picked up because Johnny Carson didn't want his shows to be rerun on the weekends, and they needed to build a slot. And the show, if you go back and look at the first 4 episodes of SNL, they're really haphazard and they don't make a lot of sense. But that show now has been on for 39 seasons. If you had this whole idea where it would be cut after 4 episodes, I don't think you would have SNL today. So the response to then your other second question was, so that's my point, is I think you miss out on a lot of great content if that's the cutoff point. Firefly is one that I really like, Firefly, but no one gave it a shot. There was another one that I'm drawing on right now, or blanking on right now, that also got cut from Fox, because Fox is notorious for that. But the response, I think, from Netflix is really interesting, because now Netflix is producing its own content, and you have House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. You would not get Orange is the New Black on any network or cable show, but it is so good. And what they do is they pick up full seasons. They pick up 13-episode seasons and distribute them all at once. I guess Arrested Development was the other one I was thinking that got cut. Because then Arrested Development got picked up by Netflix, and they did a 13-episode season 4. And so now, if you really like a show, it's kind of a la carte, and you can hop on Netflix and watch it.
The problem that if you want to talk specifically about TV, we have a big problem, and that is that we should follow the British model, where the seasons are 6 to 13 episodes total. It cuts down on the crap that they have to put out. 22 episodes is too much for a show. It stretches the soup too thin, and then
You're a TV series. How many, if you rewatch it, how many times do you skip those?
Right.
You're like, these are
yeah,
terrible.
and that's the thing, is that, like, the shows that are starting to show that popularity, what are the hottest shows right now? Walking Dead, Breaking Bad, 13-episode seasons, I mean, it's because it's a lot easier to get quality into a smaller space. But as far as Netflix goes for things like film in particular, I love Netflix, and the reason why is because they pick up films that you wouldn't be able to get access to sometimes anywhere else. Classic example, and see, now I get to say something nice about a movie that was at Film News. One of my favorite films of the year is a type of movie you're not going to find at any Redbox or rental store. It is a silent, black and white Spanish film that is an adaptation of Snow White set in bullfighting, right? I mean, you're not going to find that anywhere, right? But it's brilliant. It's called Blancanieves, and it is gorgeous. And for as much hubbub as the artist got, I thought the artist was okay. But the artist winning Best Picture and getting all that acclaim for being a silent film, it was meta. It was a silent film about silent films. This is just an awesome silent film. And it proves that you can just do a silent film in modern times and have it be absolutely fantastic. It floored me. And that's on Netflix now. I mean, there's no world in which again, other than going to film streams, which is why I'm so glad we have you, but you know, you can only show one new one at a time, you know, sometimes two, but normally just one at a time, which means we can't get everything through that I know you would even wish to show. And so that's why I'm happy for things like On Demand that shows. They have these movies now that, you know, that you can buy the same day that they come out in theater for $8, and if there's no theater anywhere near you that's showing that, I get to see it now, you know. Keanu Reeves in a movie called Man of Tai Chi that just came out that did that, and, you know, I mean, it's great.
Well, what I really like is that, especially talking about things that are canceled, even things that don't seem to do well at first, is that, even worse than music too, is that like Hulu and Netflix and all that stuff gives things a second life. Or even some movies that are so small that they're not going to even release here, it might be only New York and LA, like you will actually be able to see them because otherwise you never ever would. And it does happen in music to some extent, especially with like TV. I mean, you got Family Guy is probably an early example when they started putting movies or TV shows on DVD. Family Guy got bought so much, they're like, well, we should bring it back, and now it's in 13 seasons. Firefly is another one, like that was so popular that they made a movie out of it. Unfortunately, the movie didn't do so well, so it kind of died. It's so good. It is so good. And a lot of stuff like that. I think they're, and that, I like that. I like that there's just the opportunity to be able to maybe revisit those things. I think Kickstarter is another, that taken even a step farther. Like Veronica Mars was a TV show a lot of people liked, and through Kickstarter now it's a movie. Like it's going to be a movie.
They are.
Well, whatever the new format is doing though is, I feel like it must be positive because there's so much good stuff out there right now. I mean, it really is the golden age of television. There's so many talented people who have refused to work in television 10 years ago who are now, you know, working on great shows and doing things really passionately. And I feel like, you know, Netflix releasing an entire season all at once, you know, I binged on Orange is the New Black, I binged on House of Cards, and I mean, both of those shows were really good. I mean, they have, you know, stuff you can be critical about with them, but I feel like when they're thinking about it in that way that people could watch it all at once, that there's something about it that makes it like a more cohesive thing and makes it like this whole different kind of art form. And it's really exciting. Like, I mean, The Wire is unbelievable. If you guys haven't watched The Wire, I mean, it's the best. It's probably in my top 10 films of the last, you know, decade. And so, I mean, if you had to say that. So, I don't know. Whatever's going on with all of that stuff, I feel like it must be positive.
All right, before I jump back to Twitter, are there any questions out there that you want to ask right now? I'm not going blind, but I was saying, yeah, in the back.
How can you say it's the golden age of television just as we've oversaturated making it?
Okay, that's a good question. How is it golden age of television when it's almost oversaturated for ad revenue?
Well, it's the golden age artistically. It's not necessarily the golden age commercially.
But it is also doing very well commercially. Netflix, its stock is trading out of this world right now.
Yeah, but
you
is
know?
Netflix
It's just, what's that?
is Netflix television?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when they make a TV show and get considered for Emmys as far as House of Cards and stuff like that, I think they're primarily in the TV business, you know? I mean, at least 50-50 as much as an HBO is.
Exactly.
You know?
So it's
Yeah.
changed from the commercial model to the subscription model.
Correct.
Which
And that's what money
is about
is.
building loyalty, which means they have to have quality stuff in order to continue their audience. And so I feel like the business model is really positive.
Now, if only cable would actually figure out that we actually wanted to have a la carte versus, you know, bundling and getting 55 channels where you watch one,
Yeah.
like 3 times a
Because
day.
there's people like me who drop cable because the only thing I want to watch is HBO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
HBO Go is fine. Yeah.
You know, that has to do with a lot of stations. That goes back to, and you know this, it goes back to the fact that there were a lot of stations that were afraid of not getting picked up. And,
Absolutely.
You know, and so they built in these contracts that said that. That's going to change soon too.
Yeah.
I mean, all of it's going to change.
It's like the studio system.
Exactly. There's like a studio system. So as we're talking here, I'm getting this idea of what sounds like we're seeing the convergence model kind of at play. And the example I want to give is actually Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And here's why. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is put out on ABC. ABC is owned by Disney. Disney owns Marvel, which means that they're controlling both Phase 2 as well as the entire Avengers saga for all those movies. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I haven't seen the ratings yet. I'm guessing not doing great. Probably doing okay, but not awesome. Like it was. I thought the first 4 episodes. I'm surprised it made it past the first poll. I figured it was gonna get cut.
for a full season.
I figured it was gonna get cut.
Critically, it hasn't done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if there's enough backing behind it as on Fox, it'd have been gone. But then there's the whole Joss Whedon thing. We wanted to get into that part. But where do you see this kind of convergence system occurring as a way for the old basically studio system, to go to Charlie's point, basically trying to survive? I mean, it seems to me that the only way to really survive, that ABC is going to make it, is if they bring all these different kind of threads together and own it at all levels or all areas. So whether it be movie releases, it be studio releases, it be stuff on ABC, whatever the case may be. Do you think they're all trying to merge just to make sure they still make profit?
I think it's innovation, though. I mean, like, there's a J.J. Abrams is this crazy project coming out in a few weeks here that is like this physical copy of a book that also ties in with all these, like, there's a book within the book, and you have to do all these different multimedia things inside of it. Like, to me, the people who are going to succeed in this new marketplace are people who are creative, and people who figure out how to use it, and people who figure out how to tie it in. It's Netflix looking around and realizing, you know what we instead of just having everybody else's TV shows, why don't we make our own? I mean, that's what's going to survive here. And so I guess I don't see it as a negative. I see it as an incredibly good positive. I'm in the same boat as you, Rachel. I feel like we're in golden age of creativity right now. Where artists who want to make their art find ways to do it now, whether it's Kickstarter, whether it's partnering with the stuff that's online. I mean, to me, it's just how much you're willing to put into creative thought.
Okay, cool. Other thoughts on that?
Why? I mean, in terms like of the Marvel example, I think it's just because it's been a proven commodity, and so why not milk as much out of it as possible? Which is the same. I mean, when Harry Potter, Twilight, and Lord of the Rings all have their final movie broken up into 2 parts. Okay, yes, you could say that it's for the story, but no, it's to make more money so that you can stretch that out. It's the same thing here, where it's like, okay, well, we're doing really well in comics, we're doing really well in movies, let's try our hand in TV, and if it doesn't work in TV, they'll probably pull back and try something else.
Okay, all right. So one question popped up on Twitter. I do want to get to this question. Is all the media we intake every day potentially harmful for our generation and our spawn as well, as the word that was put up? Which is an excellent comic book, by the way. If you've never read Spawn.
Yes. That was an interesting series.
That was an HBO series, which didn't do too well. So, do you think that we're at a point where it's almost oversaturation, or are we truly in a mediated culture at this point? Or both and?
This is something I'm thinking about a lot. Personally, I'm having a baby in like a month and a half. I'm not, my wife. To be clear. So I think about that a lot, like especially whoever asked mentioned their Spawn. So I've been thinking, I don't know. My wife and I watch
Do you
movies.
refer to it as your spawn?
No.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, not from her. And that's something I've been thinking about more probably than ever before for obvious reasons. Because my wife and I watch Netflix and Hulu and listen to music, and there is some kind of media going on all the time. I realized the other day when I was like making dinner and I put Spotify on my phone and was playing music, I can't do anything without something going on at the same time. And I wonder how good that is. I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily see it personally harmful, but I know I didn't have that when I was a little kid, and there were not literally screens everywhere in a house. So yeah.
Other thoughts on that question?
I don't know how choice is a bad thing. I can understand like from the physical side of things, where you're parked in front of a TV or a computer screen all day and you're not getting out and doing some exercise. But now, if you go to a fitness center or something, they've got TVs that you can watch while you're running, so that's not an excuse. But I just think if oversaturation to me just says you've got more and more options to choose from, and you can find something that fits your niche.
I'm a big fan of moderation in all things, and I feel like it's really important to, in addition to all of the media that you're engaging with all day long, make sure that you're engaging with actual human beings as well, and that you're actually talking to people, and I try to make an effort to actually pick up the phone and call people every once in a while instead of just emailing all day long. And even though most of it's email, and going to an actual movie theater and seeing something with actual human beings and hearing someone laugh next to you is its own experience. I mean, I think that we just have to remember that that there's nothing to make media about unless you're existing in the world, and then it just becomes all media about media, which is interesting in itself. But I just think it's
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I don't believe in oversaturation. I'm with you, John.
Yeah.
But I agree. You just have to be reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, stand up, take a walk. I mean, like, it's not
If
take
you
a
go to a
walk.
buffet, it doesn't mean you have to eat the whole
Exactly.
buffet.
Exactly.
Choose what you want.
And I feel like we like to claim this sort of victimization of that. Oh, yeah, we're oversaturated. Okay, don't turn your computer on for a while then. I like the ability to connect with anybody, and to engage as much as I want. But yeah, there are days when I just go without. I mean, it's okay, and I think that a lot of times we make it sound like it's out of our control and that we're addicted or whatever, but like, no, there's no chemical addiction. Just put the phone down, it's okay.
that's what makes all of our jobs relevant, because we're the filter.
Exactly.
And different blogs and different websites, you figure out who you trust and whose taste you like, and you go to them. And it's just so cool that there's so many options out there.
So then I'm going to go to a couple of things that have popped up on Twitter here, and it's basically, let's add video games and the relatively new phenomenon of anime to the conversation here. Because 15 years ago, anime was, like, if you were walking around, you had an anime shirt on, everyone thought A, you were a Pokemon fan, and B, they thought you liked kids' cartoons.
And still probably true.
And it's still probably true. But I mean, if you think about it now, cosplay, anime, cons have become monsters. I mean, San Diego Comic-Con is making bank. They're making millions a year. Basically, as a place for geeks to get together, dress up, and listen to other geeks talk about geek stuff, which is fantastic, right? But so let's talk about how this next iteration of another mediated culture, or media culture. So video games and anime. What are your thoughts on either of these things? Charlie, go.
On all the video games and all of anime?
Go for it.
That's a lot.
You were the token person to talk
I'm
to
the
this. Go.
token person. Okay. Well, when you were talking about like oversaturation of media, I was thinking of this really neat article that I read where GTA 5, and it's number one, GTA 5 was like the most expensive video game to be made because it had the budget of most medium-sized movies, but it turned around and made all that money back within its first week, which is ridiculous. So it is a major platform. But then there was this article where, you always have the parents saying, oh, it's just a whole bunch of violence, and they're shooting prostitutes and running over police officers, and what kind of message is that to send to kids? But then this article said the people that are saying that probably haven't played the game, and they don't realize actually how much of a critique on consumerist culture the game actually is. Because that's kind of what it, like, you're trading stocks in the game, you're buying so much crap in the game, you're driving to all these different places, and so it's actually like this video game is a critique on American culture. So I think if movies and TV and books can provide critiques on the world that we live in, video games can too, and they have. And so I think that's why video games are important. But then also with anime, anime is a window into a different culture that you're just not going to get really anywhere else. I mean, the way that I look at it is you could watch Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai, which is all about, like, it's the way that we white people try and say, oh, we're so sorry that we screwed up your culture, but we're going to still have the white guy save the day. Which is what happened with Dances with Wolves, too, and Avatar. Dances with Smurfs. But anime comes directly from Japan, and it covers things, and it talks about things, and it introduces you to ways of life that are so completely different than what we recognize, and I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least check that out. And in terms of Pokemon and kids stuff, anyone that's ever seen Akira or Princess Mononoke or Spirited Away, which played at Rachel's Theater, or Ponyo or anything like that, I mean, those are not kids' topics. They're
Akira is not.
Akira is not a kids' movie. But it's, well, in the same way that Family Guy really isn't a kid's show. But they focus on topics and things that just aren't talked about a lot. And I think it's just, like we've been talking about, it's another voice, it's another option, it's another area to look into that is going to open your mind to different ideas.
Rachel, I also want to get you in a conversation with anime in particular because you have an opportunity with film streams to show movies that would not get shown in our market at all, and you always bring in classic anime and the new stuff coming out and award-winning stuff. What do you see from the audiences that come into film streams? Why do you choose the movies you choose?
Well, I mean, Miyazaki is just a really important master director. So he is someone who, anyone who is really into art, the art of film, loves Miyazaki. And so, I mean, he's someone that we've shown a lot of his work. And but other than that, honestly, like, I am just kind of tapped into the international film scene in general and what people are talking about in the film world. And so if anime is good enough to kind of sort of, it's just like any other genre, just like horror. There's some horror films that are good enough to be also art films or good enough to be like kind of important work. So, I mean, I think that that's sort of the criteria for it, and we're definitely not about trying to show, random sci-fi genre films unless they are, I mean, I love sci-fi, but unless they're interesting artistically and they don't have a huge commercial budget and they're not playing at every multiplex in town. That's really the priority for us, I think. I mean, but it would be cool to do a whole anime series, for sure consult Charlie on that.
Yeah.
Other thoughts on this idea of con culture and common culture and things of that nature?
I was thinking as you guys were talking about some stuff that Charlie was talking about, how like video games and how they can be critiqued, and it's become a big debate. Are video games art? And that Roger Ebert, the late great film critic, got into this just saying that absolutely not, no way. You were kidding me that these could be art. And I think a lot of that comes into what video games used to be, which was Mario, and a lot of them were aimed at kids. And that also comes into comic books a lot. I'm a huge comic fan, and everyone's like, I can't believe, you put this in a comic book. You're like, this is the rated R film of comic books. If you gave this to a 10-year-old, you'd be out of your mind. Like, I wouldn't show Hostel to a 10-year-old either. Like, that would be insane.
Or anyone.
Yeah, or anyone. Which is bad, but that kind of thing. And that comes into video games too, is how, well, you can't do this. Kids are going to play this. Like, well, yeah, I would hope your kids are going to play this. Like,
if I'm going to weigh in at all, and this is gonna make lots of people. I agree with Roger Ebert. I don't consider films and video games to be equal works of art. I think they're different. And for the record, that doesn't mean I don't invalidate what it is that I think video games have to offer. You said they are, in some ways, a criticism or a commentary or reflection. Sure, I believe that. I don't believe in elevating a video game to the same level as a film. I think that it's such a different medium that
I think that.
can.
I've been arguing this all day long, so we can sit here all afternoon. But I think it's. Some video games are more artistic than others.
Sure.
The way that there's Michael Bay films and
Sure.
shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It depends on the and it doesn't mean that if it's a commercial success that it's not art either. Some people can be both and.
I will say there was a documentary that opened my mind to how certain games that are not the sort of video games when we say video games, like there's a certain group of video games. It was called Video Game, the movie, was that the name of it? I can't remember.
There's this one called
Indie Game, that's what it was. The documentary. It was fantastic. And actually I went out after that and played some of the Flash games that they made from that. And it was clearly that those were art. But I have a hard time endorsing Grand Theft Auto as art, as equivalent art, I should say. Yeah.
Well, yeah. But then that raises an interesting point in talking about how different media can cross over. There have been very few successful video game adaptations of, like into film. Far more books into film. And I wonder kind of why that is, because usually, and Kevin, I don't know if you want to back me up on this one, but it's so hard to get that same feel, the same storylines, the same issues that we're talking about in a video game into a film.
Well, part of the problem is that a lot of video games feature gameplay that's 15 to 20 hours. I mean, that's the same way as distilling Lord of the Rings into one film. And also, their interactive nature is so integral to the story. Like, when you're playing a video game, you live as those characters. And so